brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
We will call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Eau Claire Plan Commission meeting for November 30th, 2020. This meeting is being broadcast live by Valley Media Works on Charter Channel 994, WRFP-LP 101.9 FM, and online at valleymediaworks.org. The Plan Commission attempts to conduct its public hearings in a relatively informal manner with the constraint that we must deal with the issues before us in an orderly and business-like fashion. We give the applicant an opportunity to speak first, and then others either for or against a proposal are each permitted to speak once. We do request that everyone restrict their comments to the issues before us, avoid unnecessary repetition, and be prudent in the use of time. We want to be sure that we have adequate time to review and discuss all items with equal diligence. When you do speak tonight, we ask that you introduce yourself with your name and address, and we ask that you be in a place where we're free of distractions in the background. We have been lately experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty, so if it takes me a minute to get you to be unmuted so you can speak to the group, just please be patient with us. We're having the same problem again tonight. So with that, we'll start with the roll call. Mr. Christofferson.
Here.
Seymour.
Here.
Brenholt.
Here.
Granlund.
Here.
Gregert. Commissioner Gregert.
Here.
Prosnick.
Here.
Wolfgram.
Here.
Obaid. I think we could hear you, Commissioner Obaid, but it was very faint.
Sorry about that. Here.
Okay, we got you. All right, thank you. Chair is present. So with that, we will see if there are any additions or corrections to the minutes from the November 16th meeting. Seeing none, those are approved without objection. And item number 4, this is the open public comment period for items that do not appear on this agenda, noted as public hearings or public discussion. If you come to talk about any topics that are not before us today, we welcome your statements. And there should be a little, if you want to speak, a little button for you to raise your hand. I see none, so we'll move on to our first public hearing item. Item number 5 for recommendation to the City Council to recommend approval of the Transportation Education Center Phase 2 at Chippewa Valley Technical College at 3623 Campus Drive. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson and members of the Commission. Before you this evening, as noted, is a request to recommend approval of the Transportation Education Center Phase 2 site plan. This is a public zoning item as it is related to Chippewa Valley Technical College and is file number PZ 2007. On your overhead map, it is item number 5 in the northwest part of the city. This shows the overall property related to the entirety of CVTC, which shows the public notification direct mailing that was done. This shows the aerial photograph of the overall campus itself. Majority of the project in question here is at the northwest portion of this site. So with that, I will start with this drawing, and as you see through Many of the items in here, there's some kind of fluctuations in terms of kind of how some of the layout looks and some of the parking shapes up, but again, a lot of that has been fluid through the design process in terms of connecting back to the existing NG Education Center. The first phase, which was before you just a short time ago, which is shown in the red highlighted or outlined box. Again, the parking lot expansion that was done, which is known as Phase 1 to the south of the Energy Education Center. As you know, this is going to be heavily used by semi-trucks and other professional vehicles, as it were, and therefore truck movements on site and to the site are certainly important to note, and the applicant has provided that here as well. This shows some of the drainage, which we'll talk about here shortly. I just want to get to a good site drawing. We'll stop right here just to show that as we talk about some of the comments here related to the project. Again, this is a request by the owner, Chippewa Valley Technical College, and the applicant, their engineer, Ayers Associates, to approve a site plan for this Phase 2. The plan calls for a new 115,000 square foot transportation education center and just short of 17.5 acres of the overall 26-acre CVTC West Campus. As you may recall, Phase 1 was for the proposed 176 parking stalls located south of the existing parking lot adjacent to the Energy Education Center, and that was approved just last month. That's a little bit faded out here to the bottom right of the screen. The proposed site plan calls for the main building to be single-story, and I'll jump ahead. Hope we can kind of keep up here as we speed over to some of the elevations. As you can see here, it is single-story in its proposal, designed with brick, tilt-up precast concrete panels with varied colors and textures, and corrugated metal panel accents. The building will also use light diffusing glazing, as you can see here, as well as exterior decorative lighting, include indoor and outdoor commons area at the main entrance, which you see here, the outdoor commons area as proposed. You can see here how nighttime it would be identified essentially on the north side of the building. Again, more of the commons area, that outdoor portion as it connects into the indoor commons, the other side of the glass. Again, nighttime view of the same. And here's a bird's eye view from essentially from the northeast corner or area of the specific zone here on the campus, showing fairly accurately some of the hardscape features as well as some of the green space proposed, as well as the parking immediately to the north of the building that would be associated with the building itself. So we'll stop here just for, again, a visual. To note that the site plan also includes proposed storage building to house motorcycle training program equipment and maintenance equipment. That on this drawing is to the far right of the screen, way in the background. Again, not very defined, but again, one of the buildings associated with this expansion. The applicant does note that the landscaping will be placed thoughtfully to accentuate front of house areas and screen back of house areas. That is one of the recommended conditions that's included in the draft site plan approval letter provided in your packet, that the applicant provide a little bit more detail to that landscape concept. You can see here, again, general rendering of the expectation here, but again, a little bit lacking the detail, especially as you see to the right there, where it abuts Campus Drive and the North Crossing. I'll jump back. I apologize for jumping around quite a bit with the slides. you can see here some of that landscaping, again, fairly defined area and some concepts, but again, requesting some final landscape details in terms of numbers and types of planting materials and related open space or green space, as you see here in this conceptual drawing. So that would be one condition as related to the approval when it moves forward for the building permit phase. The applicant also noted that site lighting will be designed to meet city standards, and again, we included that as a kind of a standard condition of approval as well, with the lighting style here to match existing campus lighting. Signage would also include building signs in the north and east facades. You can see here on the east, that's what you see where it says CVTC to the far right. And here's more building on the north side. I believe that's all they provided in these drawings. The standalone signs would be submitted and permitted separate from this request. And with that, the request will be reviewed by a city council because there's the PZ designation at their meeting next week. A few other items I do want to highlight. Again, parking, as you know, was the main focus of the expansion phase 1 before you last time. And actually this does show a fairly good representation of the parking as it's proposed on the north side of the proposed building. Again, previously it was adding 176 parking spaces at that time. Again, additional parking here would be to the northeast of the proposed Transportation Education Center building. This is planned for 94 spaces. Total parking for the entire campus is planned for 573. Applicant has provided a parking layout and calculations. This phase also proposes an additional 10 bicycle parking spaces in addition to the 24 bicycle parking spaces already provided. And that's one item that there has been a question in advance of the meeting here that applicant will need to better clarify and identify more specifically where those are being proposed moving forward. So again, identified some numbers and some general locations, but not strictly and specifically noted throughout all of plan sheets here. In terms of transit, again, the transit division did note that the site is half mile from the nearest bus stop at Folsom and Mercantile, and the project could generate some demand for transit use. So did want to note the proximity of transit in the area. Traffic itself would be increased and could add up to 20 to 55 trips during the peak hour. However, the surrounding street system has capacity to accommodate additional trips with minimal impact to traffic flow during normal operations. So even with the additional impacts to additional traffic here would not impact the surrounding transportation system in terms of vehicle traffic. With that, again, there's some additional details that will be required in terms of final grading and drainage, which will be, again, also was recommended as one of the conditions of approval. So with that, again, the applicant did provide a narrative and quite a few of the kind of plan sheets, which are included in your packet. Apologies, we did try to cut that down and shrink some of those in size in terms of file size. So apologize if there were any troubles in terms of downloading that or viewing some of those. I too did find that on my home network it was a little bit slow and lagging in terms of viewing those. So, but hopefully able to view most of these. If not, we do have access to pretty much all of those here in the slide deck as needed. So with that, I'll stand for any questions before turning it over to a few representatives from CVTC and their engineering firm.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Allen? Commissioner Gregor.
Thank
Thank you, Chair Larson, and thank you, Mr. Allen. My question is about the sidewalk connectivity to the Transportation Education Center from the city-owned roadway, the campus road that goes along the north of the CBTC campus here. Would it be something that possible for this commission to require that type of connection, and would you see that as necessary, essentially?
Very good question. That's certainly something that could be a condition of approval. I know there's some outstanding questions in terms of right-of-way in this area and access that way, so I may defer to Mr. Whitwer from Engineering Department or the applicant as well to perhaps discuss that more specifically. I'm trying to find a good slide here that we can land on. I think this shows it fairly clearly in terms of that connection up to the north. Presume, Commissioner Gregor, that's what you're referring to is kind of this area in particular?
Yeah, because I guess some of these designs I see a sidewalk going north-south along the campus road that is owned by CBTC, and I guess that's one of the confusing things about this area is that there's two campus roads. There's the private, or the one that's owned by CBTC, and then there's the one that's owned by the city. I'm not sure if we can get some clarification on that too, because on this map I'm not seeing like a north-south sidewalk really, but in other drawings I'm seeing that. But it's just neither of them connect up to the far north.
That's a very good question. I don't know if Mr. Whitwer has anything to add in terms of right-of-way. Questions?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to fix a problem here.
All right.
Yes, thank you. So prior to, I'd say around 2007, the frontage road that you would see that parallels State Highway 312 on the north side of campus was not paved at that time. It currently obviously is paved. So at the time, when our bike and ped plan was created, we showed a regional bike trail or a future plan to go along that existing campus road, as you see there, the purple. So now that we have the frontage road going north and then northwest along 312, we can amend this plan to make that future trail go along that frontage road. So yes, the campus road through campus is privately owned. I think we have no desire to make that public right-of-way. That will remain CBTC roadway.
Okay. So when you were referring to the frontage road, the dashed green line there?
Correct.
Okay, so shifting the purple line essentially to where the dashed green line is. Okay, thank you. And again, I may defer to the applicant to speak more specifically, Mr. Chair, about the connection then up to essentially that green line to the frontage road there.
Okay, I was just communicating with the applicant here because it's not giving me the unmute option again.
Really?
Even as a panelist, I can't unmute him. So.
Okay. Are they able to call in, perhaps?
It's the last message I sent.
Okay.
Mr. Bagley, are you able to hear me?
If I may?
Mm-hmm.
Let me approach it.
Of course.
Click allow, or whatever that is. For speak.
I made him a panelist. He's over here.
You click on him and it doesn't.
No?
You should be able to unmute that as well. Click
Well, this shows him unmuted. I mean, see, he doesn't even get the microphone. The other folks are muted. You get the right microphone. When they're unmuted, it's green. So, and I don't think it's an update problem. I think it's a settings problem.
It is, yeah. It looks as though, and again, I apologize. It looks like we're having there's like an audio streaming setting that's defaulting for some reason, which doesn't allow people to come in with audio. Are there any other questions that any of the commission members have before trying to bring in the applicants in this case?
Mr. Allen, I had asked this earlier, and I understand it's something that the owners would respond to, but I just want to let my peers know that I'm wanting additional information about the wetlands that that the building is going to be on top of. And I understand that's a permitting process with the state. So I'll be asking for additional information about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Mr. Bagley, did you call in?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We're having some difficulty with our software here. Did you have anything to add to what Mr. Allen had to say?
Just a couple things. I wanted to make just some general comments about the project, and then we can open up to questions. You know, I guess first of all, thank you for your time on the agenda tonight to talk about this project. Adam Whaling, our Dean of Transportation and Energy, is online as well, but maybe we're having the same technical difficulties with him as well as Brian Lambert from AIRS. So
We are.
I will do my best, but I need to defer to those guys in some cases for some specifics.
Okay.
Transportation Center will be dedicated to educating new students and retraining workers in transportation-related occupations. Programs located at the new facility would include auto mechanics, auto collision, diesel mechanics, truck driver training, and motorcycle, marine, and outdoor power products. New labs will have increased workspaces and clearances to safely handle the larger equipment that is currently being used in the industry. And we're also going to update our systems to allow for training on electric and CNG vehicles. Currently, our transportation programs are located in separate facilities around Eau Claire, and this project is really designed to bring all those programs together into one location, which will help promote collaboration among the staff and students, ability to share equipment and resources, and provide improved access to student services. So with that, I guess, I'll do my best to try to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Bagley? Mr. Greigert.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Thank you, Mr. Bagley. I was curious about the feasibility, with your design here to do a sidewalk connection up to the city owned campus road to the north, and if you could clarify kind of where you're planning on having the sidewalks be along the CBTC owned campus road portion, because some of these drawings I don't really see a road or a sidewalk that parallels that, and in other drawings I do. So just wanted to see what your plans were, and that might be a question for Mr. Lambert too. I don't know, but
well, let me speak to what I can. So certainly from the south going up to the transportation center, which we talked about last time with that parking area up to Energy Center and over to transportation, it's all designed and part of the site plan. along with the connection directly from east to west from the Energy Center over to transportation. At that point, we stopped. We didn't extend sidewalk any farther to the north, mostly because we didn't really see a connecting point. There's no sidewalk, along the city-owned campus road. If there was something to connect to, I think we'd certainly be open to, providing a connector. But it just we didn't see a good connecting point or end point.
Sure, I guess my concern would be that, if it's not in the plan now, then it'd be difficult to construct later once that trail is completed on campus road. So do you think that there is room for that based on your design to put in a sidewalk?
I think that there certainly would be room to fit something in there. I'm just looking at the site plan thinking it would make, it may make more sense to be on the east side of the private road, because otherwise you'd be crossing the entry into the north parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But we could certainly bring something up, because we have a sidewalk coming across from the Energy Center already, so it could intersect with that sidewalk and then head to the north along Campus Road up to the north towards the city-owned street.
Sure, yeah, however it could work, I think it would be great.
So are you suggesting we show it on our plan as a future connecting point when it becomes more reasonable to do that, or are you asking that we build it today?
I don't know yet.
That's fair. I mean, I don't have any problem showing it on the site plan, because I think that would work. I just hesitate to build it until we kind of know what we're connecting to.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Lambert had his hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, as Rod said, there would be room to connect up to the city-owned roadway on either the east or the west side, depending on if we felt comfortable crossing a driveway. That'd be something that we could show.
Thank you.
All right. Any other, Commissioner Christopherson?
Thank you, Chairman Larson. Mr. Bagley, in the drawings, it does show a wetlands that is part of your building site. I'm just wondering if you would give more information about your permitting process and agreement with state DNR.
Brian, you want to handle that one?
Yes, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Goodness, we started the wetland impact permitting with the DNR probably as soon as this project started, back maybe June, July. We worked with the DNR on alternative analysis for siting the building and all the parking and everything associated with the building. And we ended up placing the building where you see it in the site plan, and then looking at the parking lot and the needs for the programs that also have the asphalt essentially that isn't part of the parking lot. And due to all that impact, we essentially had to mitigate the entire wetland. So we worked with the DNR on mitigating the entire wetland, mitigating and purchasing the credits for the mitigation, and then the final approval that the DNR gave us here. I believe just about a week ago we got our final approval letter from the DNR for wetland impacts. Our plan is going to impact the entire wetland. We did do stormwater evaluation, so we now have a pond on the north side of our property, north of the parking lot, and there'll be a pond on the southwest corner that we will share with the engineering department. But we have sized them to meet all of the requirements in the city stormwater ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gregert.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Mr. Bagley, or this may be for Mr. Lambert as well. Wondering about the bike parking. I see a number of different locations, and depending on which of these plans I'm looking at. But on page 24, for example, there's actually 2 locations for bike parking for this new building that I can see. One of them closer to the door, one of them, the other closer to the parking lot. And I guess I was just seeking clarification on where you were planning on putting the bike parking.
If you go into the sheet 24 that zoomed in front entrance view, that one will work. There is, in the visitor parking lot, there's motorcycle parking in the southwest corner of the lot. And then if you go down towards where the path is leading to go south, there's 3 tables, those circles, and then there's a concrete strip with 5 lines, essentially 5 double-sided bike stalls that are sitting kind of right in that area. It's just north of kind of the wind turbine and that existing stormwater pipe on a section line that makes sense for the general location.
Thank you. So that's the location of the 10 spots, and that's right next to the building. And then you're saying that on the southeast part of that parking lot is where the motorcycle parking is?
The southwest quarter, which is MC.
Oh, MC. Okay. That doesn't appear to be enough room for 10 spots, though. I guess I'm trying to clarify the motorcycle parking too.
It is around 20 by 20 for the motorcycles.
Okay.
I don't think we anticipated a certain number of spots, just an area.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it can hold 10 motorcycles too, at like a 5 by 10 expected take of a parking stall area.
Okay.
And then I guess on the west side of that parking lot is also the level 2 electric vehicle chargers, those stations. There's 6 stalls in that area on that little west leg.
Mm-hmm. I guess as a follow-up question to that, I think I read on the path that there's going to be 2 level 2 charging stations for now, and then presumably you're maybe more in the future.
If I'm not mistaken, yes, there will be some dedicated at the building opening, and then there will be conduit and everything will be roughed in and set up to just essentially pull more electric wire as the demand increases.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any further questions from the commission? Mr. Gregor.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Just a couple more here. I'm seeing like a number of solar panels on the roof on the northern section of the building. Could you describe the amount, what that'll be for, and what kind of output you're expecting from those panels? And also if you could explain the wind turbines too, because I know there's an existing wind turbine out there, and I guess I'm wondering if this is that one or if this is an additional one.
The wind turbine you see is the existing one, and that's there associated with the Energy Education Center. So there is no plan to add additional wind at this time. That was really built as a demonstration model. With regard to solar on the roof, we are planning. We've designed the structure of the building to allow us to install solar PV panels across the entire roof. I shouldn't say not the entire roof because there is some other air handling equipment up there, but basically we'd be able to put it any place that there was space for it. And as far as the capacity is concerned, I can't speak to that one. That's within Adam's expertise in terms of what might be able to be built up there in terms of capacity. But we haven't really planned to install that at this point, but we want to make sure that we have the ability to do that as funds become available to add that kind of capacity. We're certainly interested in it, and we have a desire to do as much of solar as we can, so we want to be ready for it.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Gregor, we're having the same problem with Mr. Wheeling that we had with Mr. Bagley. Do you want him to call in?
Sure, although it's not super necessary. I think my question's been answered, so.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? All right. This is a public hearing. If there's anyone who has logged in to talk on this particular topic, Mr. Wheeling just sent me a message, Commissioner Gregor. He said 100 kilowatts of solar is currently allowed per XL Energy.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Whaling.
If there's anyone here who's logged in to address this issue from the public, please raise your hand. I'm going to check with a call-in user who has called in. If you've called in to talk on this topic, please let us know who you are and what you have to say.
This is Adam Whaling, CVTC, I believe. I put my 100 kW of solar in there for Jeremy's question. That is per service entrance, and the wind turbine would be considered a part of the energy education service entrance, so that would be not included in this location. It's important to note that XL Energy does have opportunity additional solar, but it is through a different program. So 100 kW can be CVTC owned, and the rest of the solar would be gone through the XL Energy program where they own the panels and then they lease the energy to us.
Okay. Thanks for calling in.
More questions?
Any more questions for Mr. Wheeling? All right. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. All right. It looks as though we have no further questions from the commission. We've heard from city and the applicant and opened it for a public hearing. We'll see if there's a motion for this item. Mr. Seymour.
Thank you. I move approval, pardon me, of the project with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Mr. Christopherson.
I second.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion? Mr. Gregor.
Thank you, Chair Larson, and thank you to the applicants for bringing this forward. I certainly will be supporting the project, and I appreciate the explanation of some of the renewable energy. I think that's great that be planning for the future in that regard, and the electric vehicle charging, and accommodating most motorcyclists and bicyclists in a good way. I do think it would be good to include a motion, to at least make sure that there's an intent to actually include a sidewalk with this is what I'd like to do. that goes along the campus road that connects to the city right of way to the north. So I would like to make that motion as part of our discussion here.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll check again if there's a second for the motion. And that motion fails for lack of a second. Oh, I apologize. Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did hear the Chippewa Valley Technical College is interested in putting it into the plan so that it could be added at a later time. I wonder if conversation could be entertained with staff as to how that might be done so that it could easily be added at a later time rather than asking them to construct something that doesn't have a connection point. Mr. Allen?
Commissioner Christopherson?
Would that somehow advance this discussion?
What I'm hearing, just to quickly summarize, it sounds as though Commissioner Gregor was requesting that the condition of approval for the current site plan as it's moving forward to construct that more immediately, and from your comments, suggestion may be made to defer that perhaps to a later time when the city looks at some modifications to Campus Drive. Is that how I understand
Yes,
it?
yeah.
Okay. That may still be worthwhile to see that recommendation in the form of a motion to ensure that we can keep track of that as we look forward to future I guess expansions, as Mr. Whitworth was talking about, as we modify the bike ped plan as well. So we can certainly memorialize that simply in the minutes and as part of the conversation. But if it's something's more interested to be specifically installed on the applicant's behalf, from their, I guess, budget in the future, would recommend something more specific in a motion would be preferred.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to put that motion forward for our discussion.
So seconded by Commissioner Christopherson. Any discussion?
No, excuse me.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion
Oh, okay.
pertaining to Mr. Allen's, that it be added to the drawing so that it's a placeholder for a sidewalk to be built at a later time.
I understand now. Thank you. Is there a second for that motion? Commissioner Seymour.
I would second that.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll on the amendment. Commissioner Christopherson.
Aye.
Commissioner Seymour.
Aye.
Brenholt.
Aye.
Granlund.
Aye.
Graggart.
Aye.
Prosnick.
Aye.
Wolfgram. I think that was an aye, but you cut out.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Obaid.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and that amendment passes. So we're back to the main item here. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call a roll on the item as amended. Mr. Christopherson.
Aye.
Seymour.
Aye.
Brenholt.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Graggart. Yeah, that's fine. Graggart.
Aye.
Commissioner Granlund.
Aye.
Commissioner Prosnick.
Aye.
Wolfgram.
Aye.
Obaid.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and that item passes. Congratulations. Item number 6 is a public hearing for approval by the Plan Commission to approve a conditional use permit for a bed and breakfast within an R2 zoning district located at 223 Hudson Street. Mr. Petrie.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 6 is located in Randall Park, neighborhood historic Randall Park, number 6 on the screen, CZ 2009. The property is currently zoned R2. It's located at 223 Hudson Street. Here's a zoning map showing the parcel. Also a notification map showing the residents that were notified within 300 feet. Also the neighborhood association was notified as well. An aerial photograph showing the property that is proposed for this bed and breakfast Airbnb. As you can note, the property actually has 2 structures, which is unique. Typically, we only see 1 primary structure on a property. CDJ Rentals LLC is the applicant this evening, requesting this conditional use permit to allow for a bed and breakfast. This bed and breakfast would entail 3 bedrooms for 1 unit and an additional unit for 1 bedroom. This request is similar to other requests that this commission has reviewed in the past. The property is 8,300 square feet. It does have street parking and also off the alley parking on the rear side. My understanding, this property was up for sale, and the applicant is proposing to convert again to an Airbnb. The applicant did provide in his application the information. Also, staff provided the conditional use permit review criteria for a bed and breakfast. Shown on the screen now is the elevation showing a picture. Hopefully they took down their political sign this evening. Hopefully that was from months ago, but this would be the property that would be suited for the bed and breakfast. As you can note, it was built in the early 1900s. It is historic value in the community. It is not historic landmark. You would notice the marker that historic properties carry, but it does add a unique opportunities for the public, travelers, anyone coming to the community to rent out this for a night or a couple nights. This applicant does have existing Airbnb that was approved by this commission a couple years ago, and judging by the reviews on Airbnb, they are an excellent host with 0 complaints at this time. This commission did review an Airbnb last year, and staff has not received any complaints about any Airbnb at this time with the applicants that have come forward through this request. Also, they did provide an area or a photograph of the existing building behind the existing home. As you can see on the screen, that would be the back one. No additions or to the structure are proposed, and the appearance of the dwelling will be maintained. The Plan Commission should reconsider the provisions as noted in the report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions this evening.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Petrie? Commissioner Wolfgram.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. Good evening, Mr. Petrie. You stated that the neighborhood association and the neighbors were notified. Can you share with us what the overall response was from them, please? Thank you.
You bet. Excellent question. Unfortunately, we did not get a response from the neighborhood chair, Laura Lehman. Also, we have notified within 300 feet, and we did not hear any comment or support of or opposition to this request at this time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. This may be, Mr. Petrie, a matter of semantics, but at one area it's identified as a bed and breakfast, and then under the proposed land use it says Airbnb. What is the difference?
Yeah, excellent question. Bed and breakfast is a typical term that we use in our ordinance. The applicant has indicated on their application and their previous application that this will be listed on Airbnb, which is a popular website for bed and breakfast rentals.
Follow up if I could. So Does every property that is an Airbnb in Eau Claire have to go through this process? Or, I just wonder, I know we're going to be dealing with this in the future, and kind of clarify some of this, but I know there's other Airbnbs in the city that haven't gone through this process, and I'm just curious, you know, the EDJ Rentals has been good about doing this. What about the others, or what? How does it work?
Excellent question,
Sorry.
Mr. Seymour. No, that's what we're here for. So typically, a bed and breakfast usually goes through a conditional use permit. The reason being is because it's a short-term rental. So what that means, it's typically less than 30 days. If you're over 30 days, that would just be considered a rental property. A short-term rental similar to this would be like a hotel or a motel where you're renting a weekend or a week, no more than up to 30 days. After that 30 days, you're considered not a transient guest anymore. You're considered a short-term rental. Like any college student would be renting for either 6 months to 8 months. That wouldn't qualify under this program. Now, typically, yes, they should be going through this process. Now, if you go on Airbnb website, there's more on there than this commission has reviewed and approved. With that being said, they typically go through the health department after this. So after we approve this conditional use permit, they'll be licensed and registered with the health department, city county health, and then they do the inspection to assure that they're staying within a compliant home with smoke detectors and many other things. But yes, they should be going through this process.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question would be about long-term supervision and re-inspection of the property so that it doesn't degrade into student housing or something that's less than the, I appreciate the specific provisions that have applied for its historic or near historic significance. So how does the city monitor things like that over time?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I would ask the applicant that question. The reason being is because they have an existing bed and breakfast, and they would know the exact process that they need to go through and the annual process that they go through. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Petrie before I call on the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Garlick, are you here to talk about this conditional use? Hello, Mr. Garlick? Well, I was able to unmute him. Ed Garlick, are you here to talk about the conditional use permit? There, he's got his hand up. Do you have a microphone on your... Okay, just a minute. Okay. Well, I have you unmuted, Mr. Garlick. Obviously, we're having some problems hearing you. If you could try calling in on a cell phone, that would be helpful. We'll see if we get a call-in user here.
Mr. Chair, you can go probably to the next agenda item and then come back. I just
Okay.
don't know the information.
All right.
If you want to do that.
Okay, we will, there. Mr. Garlick? Here we go. Mr. Garlick, did you call in?
Can you hear us?
Just a moment. Can you turn down the volume on your computer? There.
Yes, okay, let's try it now.
There we go. Thank you for calling in. You have any information to add?
Could you restate that, please?
Do you have any further information to add to what Mr. Petrie had to say?
No. There was a question asked that I didn't quite hear regarding our current Airbnb.
Okay. Is the volume on your computer still up?
Yes, I'll go in the other room and talk.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
here
go
we
ahead and turn that computer right off.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Commissioner Christopherson, did you have a question?
Thank you. I do have a question about, you're operating other bed and breakfasts in Eau Claire at this time. And I'm wondering about the process of monitoring the way it's inspected by City County Health. This is, of course, a lot of student housing, and I'm just wondering whether or not it might find its way down that slippery slope into being student housing at some point.
Well, I guess I don't know exactly what the future is going to bring, but as far as inspections with the city, we pay a fee, they come and do an inspection, and we complied with our other building. And as far as this particular building, it's a perfect use for another wonderful historical property in the Randall Park neighborhood that hopefully we can keep out of the student rental world by making it an Airbnb to be shared with multiple other people in our community and elsewhere.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
It's a perfect.
Go ahead, Mr. Garlick.
It's a perfect use for this kind of historical building to get used by people that have short-term rentals in town or short-term stays. Our other one, as Ryan had mentioned, is very popular. We get a lot of input regarding how close it is to downtown, the bridges, the bike trail, and this one will be the same. It'll be in the same neighborhood where it'll really expose Eau Claire to a lot of people and things that we like to show off in our city.
Thank you. Commissioner Greger.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Thank you, Mr. Garlick and Mr. Petrie. Mr. Garlick, I was wondering, I know that I'm not sure what you'd call it, the carriage house in the back is currently rented out. I visited friends there for probably over 10 years who have lived in that building. I was wondering, like, what the plans are for, current tenants, and, I think I saw the narrative that you'd only have a one-bedroom in this building in the back, while I understand now it's kind of like set up as two units. Do you think you could explain kind of whether you'll continue to have kind of longer-term renters and, how you'll be using this building in the back?
Right. So currently our intention, or present, we want to keep the building in the back will remain a rental for the foreseeable future. They are two-bedroom apartments in the back. The one bedroom that you're speaking about would be apartment B, which is on the right-hand side of if you're looking at the front of the building. The front building is a duplex also. It's a 3-bedroom on one side where the Ziers lived, and it's a 1-bedroom on the other side that is currently a rental. And don't have any intentions right at the moment to do anything different with those other apartments.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any further questions from the commission for Mr. Garlick? All right, thank you, Mr. Garlick.
Yes. Thank you very much.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who logged in to comment on this particular conditional use permit? If so, there should be an opportunity there for you to raise your hand. Okay, I see none. We will see if there's a motion on the commission for approval.
Thank you. I move for approval.
Mr. Christofferson.
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Commissioner Greggert.
Thank you, Chair Larson. I know there was a question about if we heard anything from the neighborhood association, and I did place a phone message with Lauren Learman from the neighborhood association on Friday, but I did not get a response. So that's just more information. I guess that is not maybe that important, but I just thought I'd let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wolfgram.
Yes, I think it's very important. I would be very uncomfortable myself voting in favor of this, although overall I'd like to, without a response from Lauren Learman, and to see perhaps a letter of support. I don't know if the precedent has been set in prior years for a neighborhood association to not support something like this. But if not, I certainly wouldn't want to set a precedent for neighborhood associations to not weigh in on being supportive. Citizen participation and this broadened communication is part of the purpose of a neighborhood association in matters affecting neighborhood livability. So I would have to vote no today until we would get a response from the neighborhood association. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Seymour.
Thank you. Excellent points made there. I myself am a member of the Randall Park Neighborhood Association. I've been a steering member on that association for, maybe 10 years. In the past, and I can't speak for the neighborhood association, but my experience with it and the way we voted in the past on these situations has been pretty much 100% in favor. I think reason being, we'd like to see these buildings preserved in their current state as much as possible. And I think this is certainly one way to achieve that. So, as I said, I can't speak for the neighborhood association, but past experience would say it would likely be in favor of this, but that's about all I can say about that, I guess.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I see none. We'll call the roll. Commissioner Christofferson.
Aye.
Seymour.
Aye.
Brenholt. Commissioner
Aye.
Ben. Okay. Commissioner Granlund.
Aye.
Greigert.
Aye.
Prosnick. Commissioner Prosnick, we missed you.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolfgram.
No.
Commissioner Obaid.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That item passes. Congratulations, Mr. Garlick. Item number 7 is a item for public discussion for recommendation to City Council for approval of an annexation of a single-family home at 2611 Preston Road. Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 7 is located on the west side of the community, currently in the town of Union, pretty close to the CVTC West Campus. The property annexation request in front of you this evening is a single-family home. Also has some vacant parcel to the south. It's approximately 1 acre in size. Now, you may note the City of Eau Claire is proposing to annex some right-of-way as well. That's for sewer and water extension along Preston Road, which is in the town of Union at this time. The City of Eau Claire does own the retention pond to the south and to the east of this annexation, and that is part of this annexation this evening. The state of Wisconsin has reviewed this annexation and is in agreement with the City of Eau Claire to take in the remaining right-of-way to the south of this parcel. The single-family home will remain in place, and the developer is proposing to extend sewer and water for potential structures to the south of the existing home. Again, the parcel is approximately 1 acre in size. This comprehensive plan, it notes this as low-density residential. This request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. There is sewer and water available to be extended along the street. The zoning after it does get annexed will be TR1A, and that rezoning would have to come back to this commission and to the council at a later date to approve it. With that, I'd be standing for any questions this evening.
Thank you. Any any questions from the commission? Commissioner Greigert.
Thank you, Chair Larson, and thank you, Mr. Petrie. The land to the east and the south that's within city limits, is that like a stormwater or wetland area that would never be developed, or what are you anticipating that the use being in the future there?
Excellent question. I would have to turn to my counterpart here and ask the city engineer, because I'm not sure.
Thank you. That would be a city stormwater pond, so I would say that it's very unlikely that it would ever be developed.
Any more questions from the commission?
Thank you.
All right, I see none.
Thank you.
And I do not see the applicant logged in.
Oh.
Eisenhuth?
Yeah, they said they were going to be available this evening, but I guess staff can answer any questions that the commission may have on behalf of the property owner.
I'll check again with the commission. Any questions? All right, thank you. Is there a motion on this item? Thank you, Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. So moved.
Mr. Christopherson?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll. Commissioner Christopherson?
Aye.
Seymour?
Aye.
Brenholt?
Aye.
Granlund?
Aye.
Greigert?
Aye.
Prosnick?
Aye.
Wolfgram?
Aye.
Obaid? Commissioner Obaid.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. That item passes. Item number 7 is an item for public discussion for recommendation to the City Council to recommend approval of an annexation of a single-family home located at 2929 Orange Street. Mr. Petrie.
Thank you. Number 8 on the agenda, 20-8A, is located on the southeast side of the community, currently in the town of Washington. This property will be annexed into the city of Eau Claire. This is a different situation. The property owners currently has a failed septic. There's 8 members of a family living at this home currently, and their septic has failed, unfortunately. So this is an emergency annexation where the city of Eau Claire will allow them to connect to the city sewer and water along Orange Street, which is stubbed into the property currently. So this is on the corner of Orange Street and Clay Street in the town of Washington. So this annexation is to connect to the city sewer and water. It's approximately 0.7 acres, single family home. It is well within the sewer service areas as noted. And again, the septic system has failed on the property. This property owner is not available this evening. They're actually out of town because of this situation that they're dealing with. The plumber has contacted the City of Eau Claire Plumbing Inspection Department already to connect as soon as possible. So this was we call this a rush annexation or an emergency annexation. The state of Wisconsin has rushed the application as fast as we could with COVID and everything else that's going on. They would like to connect as soon as possible. So City Council would review this next Tuesday, and they are planning on connecting to the city sewer and water on Wednesday if possible. So this is a different situation, but this doesn't happen very often. I can tell you in 5 years with doing annexations, this is the first one where I've actually heard this, they had to vacate or pretty much move out of the property for an extended period of time, unfortunately. So with that being said, this is consistent with the comp plan, and the property owner would be very thankful if this commission and the council approved it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on behalf of the property owner as well.
All right. Any questions from the commission? I see none. Thank you. We'll see if there's a motion for this annexation. Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. So moved.
Mr. Christopherson.
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll. Commissioner Christopherson.
Aye.
Seymour.
Aye.
Brenholt.
Aye.
Granlund.
Aye.
Gregert.
Aye.
Prosnick.
Aye.
Wolfgram.
Aye.
And Commissioner Obaid.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and that item passes. Future agenda items and announcements. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I apologize to everyone participating and watching due to the audio problems. I've been trying to troubleshoot on my computer to figure out what's going on, and it's not immediately evident. So hopefully we'll have it finally sorted out for your next meeting, which is December 14th, 2 weeks from tonight, at which time we will have also the next Comprehensive Plan 5-year review work session. We're hoping we could start at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30 to give us a good 90 minutes to really kind of wrap up a few of those different chapters. Planning staff have had a good run with meeting with other boards, commissions, and committees to get some of their input and feedback in reviewing that. So we're still in the process of doing that. So appreciate the timeline here to kind of work through that even over the next week or two here to wrap up some of that. So we anticipate a full kind of walkthrough at your next work session, which again, hopefully we can do at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30, in part because I know we do have a fairly brief agenda, looking at Mr. Petrie, who's nodding affirmatively, a fairly brief agenda for your 7 o'clock part of the meeting. So hopefully we can start at 5 and wrap up even earlier than we may be here tonight. So that's where we are looking here for the remainder of the year. Actually, it's the only scheduled meeting in December, because here we are with the third meeting already in November. So this is essentially acting like your first meeting in December, if that makes sense. And then the 14th is essentially acting like your second meeting in December. So you'll have a few weeks off for the holidays just by default. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the commission? Seeing none, without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, and once again, thank you for your patience with the technology. Good night.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.